In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Type tool in InDesign. Just as a refresher, on the left we have our tools, including the Type tool right here. On the right we have our windows. We should have properties open. We want to have pages and layers. Links, eventually we don't need them right now, but I'm focusing on properties and layers right now. So the way that you start with Type is just by selecting the Type tool. You select the tool and then you drag out a box. Note that this box is on layer 2. We can tell because it's red and layer 2 is red. And layer 2 is also highlighted. If I wanted to be more organized, I could rename the layers. So I'm going to plan on putting most of my text or all of my text on layer 2, so I'm going to name it text. And I'm going to plan on having my shapes and my background colors on layer 1. So I'm renaming that shapes, and I have the liberty to add more layers and not name them or name them, but in any event, that can help keep you organized. So here we have our box of text, and now just like you would in Microsoft Word, you can just start typing. I'm going to use the book Landscape with Invisible Hand for this demo. And I'm going to write landscape with invisible hand. Now, I'm a very bad speller, so I actually typically don't like typing directly in InDesign, but you can, and there actually is a spell check option if you want to turn it on. It's called dynamic spelling, and if you turn it on, it will correct your spelling. Now, another thing that's convenient to know about InDesign is I just typed all of this in lowercase letters. Title casing usually has all of the first letters in a title capitalized. So instead of going in and fixing that, you could just highlight this text, again, the same way you would highlight text in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So you'd highlight the text, and then you could go to the type bar on the top of your screen, and then you can change the case. You can change it to lowercase, you could change it to right now it's in sentence casing. The one I'm going to point out is title casing, and that just made it so the first letter in each word is now capitalized. The next thing I want to do while my text is highlighted is change the font. Right now it's in Minion Pro, which is the default font that Adobe InDesign always starts with when you type. But I had saved that font from the Adobe Fonts video called Brevier. So I'm going to now, you can either just hit the down button and look for it. It's actually a pretty recent. I have recent selected, and I also have this cloud selected, which means that right now I'm only seeing the fonts that I have gotten from Adobe Fonts, so from the cloud. If you don't have any filter selected, which is what's happening right now, you get all of these options. These little icons mean that the font has an issue with it. You shouldn't have that problem. Anyway, you could just filter it. I like to filter it because I've really just been mostly using these Adobe fonts and recent. So this will show the things that I've recently activated. So okay, but the other way that you can find a font other than scrolling and looking for it is just by typing it in. Granted, to do this you need to know how to spell it, which is not a given, but if you've written it down, you can spell it. And now we have this font. I'm going to click away. If I'm not selected inside the font, like inside this text box, right now I'm inside the text box. You can see the blinking cursor that shows that we can type. I'm going to untype that though, invisible hand. That's correct now. And if you click outside of the text box and then you get your selection tool, now we can move this box, which means we can move the type wherever we want it. If we want to resize it, so I just double clicked inside this box, which jumps me over to the type tool. We can highlight this, and now we can change the font from inside the box. Now it's too big. It doesn't fit inside my box. So I can either make my box bigger or I can make my text smaller. Another thing we can do if you want letters to fall on different lines is you can hit enter and enter. Now my box is too small again, so I'm going to make it bigger again. I'm going to double click and that will jump my box to being the correct size. Another way that you can resize text without actually doing it manually is if you hold down Command and Shift and then you drag from a corner, that will resize your text with your box. That can be pretty convenient. Although notice that now when you go in, the size is pretty random. So you can also, I would probably then make it a normal size. So that's how you can use type. There's more to it. You can also go back in and hit Command or Control A. That will let you select all of your type. You can, over here, you can, these are a bunch of different things you can change about the font or the way that the words are spaced. And I want to point out also that as I'm clicking inside the box, and if I click away, the Properties panel updates and changes according to what it thinks you need. When you're clicked inside the text box, it gives you all of these text-based options because it's a tool-sensitive window. So if I highlight everything, here are some more options. So this is size. This is the space between the lines. That's called the leading. And you can increase this or decrease this if you want. Right now it's set to auto. And I think unless you have a reason to change this, you probably shouldn't. But see, now I'm increasing the space between the lines. And I think, that could be cool. And it could take up more space if you want it to. We can go back in. Let's hit Command A. If you want to get it back to auto, you can also do that just by hitting auto. This over here is the tracking. This changes the spacing between the letters. See, now it's getting all tracked out. I'm going to go back and make that 0. These are the kind of things that you should really only change if you have a reason to change it, which is true of most things. Okay, if we want, we can get more options or less options by clicking these 3 dots. I like to have as many options as possible. Right now, if you notice, this says USA English. You can change it to any language that you want. I think the best thing is probably to keep it at USA English, but that will define what's misspelled or, grammar. Like if you were spelling things the British way and you're set to US English, it might catch as a spelling mistake, but you could change that if you wanted. The other thing I want to point out is the paragraph panel over here. So we can also change how the text is sitting, right? We can, right now it's aligned to the left, and I like that, but you can also center align it. That's pretty common with book covers, actually, is center aligning text. You can right align the text, you can justify the text. Right now it's not showing as justified because I hit enter a bunch, but let's undo this. I'm going to hit Command or Control Z. Another thing I want to show you is how to turn off hyphenation. Hyphenation is used, it's really only necessary in very specific situations, like, making an article in a newspaper, writing an article in a newspaper with very tiny text, or in books. But in a cover like this, hyphenation is just terrible. So you should turn hyphenation off. And here are more options that you can play around with. Yeah, and so that's how you can set the type. I'm going to make this smaller. I think it's taking up a little bit too much space. That's too small. And I can just keep playing with it. Oh, and you know what? Right now it's justifying. See, it's making landscape fill up the line. I'm just going to have it be left rag again. So that's how you can set text in InDesign. Now, if you wanted to see a preview mode, let's say you wanted to look at your page without the red lines and without your margin lines, you can hit W and that will get you into preview mode. Now we can have a better idea of what we're looking at. Okay, I want to reference my thumbnail now just to see what I could do. or what I was hoping to do. And I think I'm going to focus on this one right now, this top one. And I'll get to the shapes and how to get that picture frame later. But right now I just want to focus on how, so I have the letters here and I need to put the author and the review in. So that's just setting more type. So I'm going to, again, well, first I'm going to hit W so I can get back in. Now I'm going to drag out another type text box. See how it goes back to Minion Pro. And now I need to type in M.T. Anderson, that is who wrote this book. And I'm going to now highlight that, and I'm going to make this font, Henley, because that's the other one that I had thought to use it with. I'm going to make it bold, and I want this to be pretty big. M.T. Anderson's a pretty popular author, so I think it would be worth making the text, his name, big. And this isn't necessarily the best designed thing, but this is how you would place text. And now we can also add another text box with the reviews. So author of, and I spelled author wrong. We can also turn spelling off. I think it might be, I often like to turn spelling off until all the way at the end, just so I don't get distracted by correcting spelling. Author of Feed, a National Book Award finalist. Okay, and now I'm going to hit Command or Control A to highlight this and make this Headley. And I can just make it regular. But for feed, I want to make feed italicized, so I'm going to go in and make it italicized. And we can also, I want to kind of use the same type of letters, so I'm going to hit Command C to copy, and then I'm going to hit Command V to paste. Now I have a second one of this. Now I can double click in, hit Command A, and just start typing to get another review. A biting and brilliant satire. Okay, so that's how I would set my text. In the next video, I'll talk more about how you can get shapes in to make this a little bit more interesting.